Are you not going to go back to dancing? This is what happens when you bring two totally weird people together.
Hello.
On launch day.
This is one of my favorites. I'm snorting.
I am. This is a big day. This is a big day, everybody. So I'm here.
There's 26 hours today, I think, just in honor of.
Just for you.
Pretty sure.
We are back with Dr. Jeff Moody on his launch day. Launch day for The Doctor is Burned Out. #1 bestseller. I'm still getting used to how things work.
I know. It's like crazy, backwards.
Well, I used to do live streaming in Zoom, and now we are inside of StreamYard, and things work a little bit differently inside of StreamYard. But
it's like an alternate universe, I think.
Yeah. This is a big day for Jeff. So Jeff, how are you feeling first and foremost?
I am like so peaceful and honored to be here and so lucky to have such a great team. I wrote the book and then pretty much they took care of everything else. I've just been kind of along for the ride. So it's been great. It's been exciting. And like the coolest thing for me is that I feel like the reason why I did all this is finally like getting out into the world. So that's kind of like scary, but really exciting and cool. And I'm very excited for that. So
it is scary to get out into the world in this way. And you are relaxed because when I first came into StreamYard, you were waiting and you were I even said, you look cool as a cucumber because he was sitting here just like checking it out. You should see, can you rotate your screen to show everybody how gorgeous your patio is?
If it was a better view,
Look at how beautiful that view
hanging out on the deck, because that's where
that's what you do. That's it. Just hang out.
A lot of this, a lot of chatting with Amber and other people, hang out on the deck.
So this topic of yours, burnout, it's important now more than ever before. And I have observed a pretty radical shift, Jeff, in the past 2 weeks, especially. I don't know what went into the water or what was in the air, but 2 weeks ago, I started noticing a shift in behavior, both on calls. I'm on calls, 10, 14 calls a day, every day, which is by choice. I love that, okay? But also in email. And last Wednesday, I think I had 13 people that all expressed some level of mental health issue. And one of them was this woman who I've known for years, past client, resurfaced, hadn't heard from her in a while. And she said, Amber, I don't know who else to reach out to, but you and I have always had a special connection and I'm struggling. Like, I'm having a hard time right now. Some days I don't even recognize myself. I don't know if I should be on social media or if that's hard for me. Should I be off social media? Like, I just don't know what's going on. I don't feel like myself. And that was one of 13 that day, Jeff. And it totally, it's kind of suffocating me a little bit now because I see it everywhere. And I think part of that's burnout. Part of it's the state of the world that we're in. Have you observed that? What are your thoughts about what's happening right now?
And it's one of those, you hate for it to be like the observer phenomenon, like just because I'm writing a book about burnout that like now I see it everywhere and people want to talk to me about it. And, I'm partly, I think, because we're putting out that energy that then attracts people who are looking for help. But at this point, I'm like, I want that to happen. I want people to be like raising their hand instead of like, turning on their car in the garage and shutting the garage door. I want people to get the help they need. And if that's me, like being like, I always say, you can always tell the pioneers because they're the ones with the, the slings and arrows and things in their back. I'm like, I'm okay taking the punch in the back if that is what it takes to get people to start acknowledging that this exists and that it might be them and maybe it is them. And oh my God, what do I do when I hate my job or I hate parts of my job, but I love parts of my job? And how do I reconcile that? I mean, it's it's yeah, the studies, the statistics show that maybe double to triple the rate of mental health issues since March. And not that they were great in March already in general. And I do think
Okay.
social media is like a little tiny pressure cooker that I think ramps people's general level of anxiety up on a regular basis. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think I've seen all of those things you describe, and I'm not happy that it's happening, but I'm like, let's at least get it out there and handled and talked about, and get on a path to get better.
Yeah, and I've observed that, especially in our audience, kind of high performers, entrepreneurs, people wanting to save the world, these are people that they try to be more on the positive spectrum. Like, okay, I just had a bad day, tomorrow will be better, right? Like that's generally how they lean. But the thing about burnout that I think is really fascinating, and something that this is why education is so important, is it's so subtle. It's like a thin veil that comes over you over a period of time before all of a sudden one day it becomes undeniable and it's in your face and it just completely rips you apart. So it's like, if you can be educated on the warning signs, here's what to look out for. And you're not going to know that unless people like you do the hard thing and use your voice and get out in the world. So thank you for what you do. But is that your observation or your experience of how burnout kind of comes in? And what are the warning signs?
Oh, it's totally insidious. I mean, the problem is, well, okay, in general, entrepreneurs, kind of our friends and cohorts and people we spend a lot of time with, and doctors, my friends and cohorts and people I spend a lot with, they're like, whatever it takes. Like, I can do it. I'm a high performer. I've made it through medical school. I can work 150 hours a week. I mean, I worked 130 hours a week, and people are just, they're willing to do whatever it takes, and they don't realize that, like, maybe it's taking too much. Maybe that, like, that's not the way it should be, and maybe you're giving too much for what you're getting in return. And the biggest issue is, since it's so insidious and slow, and I think it's almost like it's just like this never-ending waterfall of yeses. Like, you keep saying yeses to small little things that then like becomes this mountain over a week, a month, a year, a decade. And it's very difficult for people to then either dismantle that or say no, or to reconstruct their life in a way that's useful and meaningful to them. And the other problem is, burnout is like, it's a chameleon. It can be, me, I got mad. It could be you got, stressed. It could be, people who get blue or sad. It can be people who get really quiet. And I think it manifests in so many different ways. Everybody is different. But the end result is, like, you feel at the end of the day, there's nothing left of you. So it's an unbelievable set of circumstances. And now, obviously, with pandemic, job loss, the stress that I could go to the hospital and get something that could kill me and or my family, that's just like an everyday, possibility. And I think that just the studies show it's, the anxiety has doubled or tripled in the last 6 months.
I know, I feel that. I see it, I feel it. And I had to take an extra long pause when you said, you kind of run out of that feeling of you, right? That, I know that feeling, that feeling. It's like you've given it all away and then you didn't protect yourself. And that's a hard one. I've also talked to a lot of women. They seem to have an exceptional time of taking care of themselves first because they're givers. Not exclusive to women, men. I'm just saying.
But no, but Amber, that's a great point.
It's like
the incidence of burnout is higher in women. The incidence of suicides in physician who are women is higher.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, both. It's worse. Burnout is worse in women.
Wow. I'm going to pause for a quick commercial. Because Jeff's book here, The Doctor is Burned Out, we're going to drop this link into chat. this isn't just for doctors, right, Jeff? Like, if I am a stay-at-home mother, can I get value out of this book? And when I buy the book on Amazon, I can come back and get all of these amazing bonuses for free today, right?
I would love people to do all of those things. And again, the studies show that probably 40 to 50% of all workers have burnout. And the problem is, I think if you're at home with your kids all day, 3 kids in, homeschool with online learning, like that's more than a full-time job. I would say you're working if you're doing that. So yeah, absolutely. I've had all sorts of readers and comments and clients from all different kinds of professions: accountants, lawyers, doctors, writers, professors. I mean, I think anyone, entrepreneurs, anybody who is really high performing and demanding a lot of them out of themselves can get to this point. It's not a certainty, but you can definitely get to this point. And I've had a number of comments about the book say, like, other than the medical examples, this is 100% applicable to me, to whatever profession they're, a lawyer, an accountant.
I just thought of an interesting question. I wonder, in your opinion, do you think burnout is more mental, emotional, or both? If it were more of something to tackle mentally, then I might try to have more willpower or force to overcome that. Whereas if it's more, has a more of an emotional pull, then I might need to really address that through writing, some way of getting a release and getting some of that energy out, or is it a hybrid of the two?
Okay, well, first of all, I want you to know, and then everyone on the call to know, I think burnout is a result. Okay, there are many, many, many different factors that lead to it. And it does, I think one of the results is it does affect your mental health. It does affect your emotional health. It does affect your physical health. And so the way that I attacked it and the way we recommend is to attack all of those things in ways that help you reframe your life and build yourself a better box, so to speak, to live in versus the one that has kind of maybe been built around you. And I think one of the issues is people think, well, if I just was more resilient. And I love that people talk about resilience, but I also don't want that to be the only mechanism that people use to fix things, because I'm like, by God, like if entrepreneurs who are in charge of companies that may employ hundreds of thousands of people, if physicians who have, people's lives in their hands and they work 50, 80, 100 plus hours a week, if we're not resilient, I don't know who is. I mean, we don't need more of that. We need better construction of our life and better construction of the systems around us to support our life instead of taking away all of our life. Sorry, I get kind of excited about this. So,
I'm taking so many notes because the next obvious question is, how do we construct the box better, right? So what comes to my mind is I'm thinking, the things that I've heard or tell myself enough is like, get enough sleep, make sure that you're eating well and drinking enough water, and you have a good exercise routine, that you have some sort of, whether it's a therapist, you have a priest, you're active in something that is a mental and emotional outlet for you. You're having conversation with somebody that you trust, that's not influencing you or manipulating you. It's a safe space that you can go talk to. Like, these are some of the things that are coming to my mind. What am I missing? What am I not thinking of?
Well, I think, okay, those are all great activities once you decide, or once you have thought about what are the priorities in your life, what are the maybe the paradigms or the mental models that are running your life. What are the agreements that I've made in my life that may be serving you or they may be harming you? For example, a paradigm that I've had, I've talked to unfortunately, lots of physicians. They're like, well, everybody in my family's a doctor, so I'm going to be a doctor too. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was like an inherited trait. Like, just because everyone else did it, you have to do it too. And then, yeah. And so now all of a sudden you're in that job and in that career and doing that. And you may be like, I hate this. I wanted to be an artist my whole life. Like, right. Oh my God, that's a recipe for burnout. But that's a complete mind shift that you're going to have to make to make yourself better. You're probably never going to be happy in that career as a physician. I think some of the agreements people make, they're like, well, I wanted to work, for a free community clinic, but I have so many loans. I'm going to go work over here at this clinic that I really hate for 5 years and pay off on my loans. And then I'll go work at the community clinic. So again, that's like an agreement or a trade-off that people make that I think is potentially very damaging or harming to them in the short term, or maybe a lifelong one. And then you have to fix that. You have to fix those mental models or paradigms that are running your life, because all of your behavior and all of your actions is directed by something. It's directed by something in your life that some internal, program that you're running that is making you run your life. So I'm a big fan of like people getting down to the brass tacks and getting down to like, what are the things that actually drive you? And like for me, it was I had to be the most productive partner in my practice. And nobody told me that. And I had to run my practice too. So it just like it wasn't stamped on my forehead, or it didn't, I just thought that I did. And then after about 15 years of that, I was like, you know what? That is complete baloney. I'm like, I can work 4 days a week and still be a great doctor. And surprise, I'm way happier. And I wrote a book, and I'm actually having a very fulfilling professional life and a very fulfilling personal life as well. There's no law that says you can't have both. So
I love that you brought this up. So you're saying that you had this belief that you had to be the most productive partner. And when I look back on the biggest burdens, the biggest crosses to carry, the things that have been, I've been carrying on my back, are the things that I somehow, somewhere thought I was responsible for this one thing. Nobody told me that. Like, I don't even know where it came from. But like, I remember this summer, I had this total eye-opening moment and experience that I was responsible for the health and well-being of my family, like my mom and my sister and my dad, and how we all get along, and da. And I've been carrying it around for 7 years. And I thought, what, like, why? And when I realized that I didn't have to be responsible for that, like we could equally be responsible for that, and I could just show up and be myself, it was like the freaking heavens opened up for me. And I felt so much better. I felt this huge relief. And so I then thought, wow, what other beliefs am I carrying around? Like, what other things do I think I'm responsible for where it's my own doing, right? That's contributing, that then could create burnout, and, add in a couple of other elements, and then boom, you get slapped down by life. So it's like you have these moments of aha that are really kind of nuts.
Another one I think is a giant one for people is they think that I'm a physician or whatever. I make a lot of money, or they have some sort of paradigm that like I need to live a certain lifestyle if I have this career. I'm a lawyer, so I need to have a fancy house and a fancy car, or whatever. And then like next thing you know, that whatever those possessions are now running your life financially, and then you have to run faster to keep up with those obligations. And like, well, no one told you that. Again, it's like it's just something that you probably like osmosis came in through your skin, and it's running / ruining your life. I'm like, let's back up the truck. I mean, maybe there are agreements and mental models and things we need to think about first, that then once those are in alignment with you, it makes everything else very simple. That's a big thing. I don't want to treat the symptoms like, I always kind of say you can treat a rupturing aneurysm with transfusions and Band-Aids. That doesn't fix the problem. You're not getting to the core of the problem. You actually have to do the surgery to fix the problem. So let's not treat the result. Let's treat the causes. It's kind of, I don't know. I'm a simple man. That's just the way I've kind of gone about it. And that worked out pretty well for me. That works out pretty well for our clients. This is kind of what the book is based on. Mm-hmm. And I just want people to be a little more aware of what burnout is, and aware of how they may be driving that themselves to a small extent.
That's right. Jeff, I'm so grateful for you. When you guys go to his book page today, you can get the book on Amazon. It's a #1 bestseller. People are buying it like crazy. I know in our company chat, I took a screenshot and sent it to Jeff because like everybody on the team was like, I bought my copy, I got mine, ordered. And it was really sweet the way that they showed up and supported Jeff, not just because, of anything other than their belief in him and that this topic is real and applies to everybody. So you can get some free bonuses. You'll hear about that. The link is in chat below. Jeff, I know we have never enough time, but I do want to, we have about 7 or so minutes left, but I want to dig into your story. Now, usually on these things, podcasts and live stream, people ask for the story first. I don't. I like to get into the meat of what is the topic? How does it relate to me? What are some action steps? But you have a story that I remember the first time I heard it like choked me up. And I think part of that was there were pieces of that I could really relate to and identify with. And I think it's just one that I want you to share. So whatever part of that you feel to share right now.
Well, I tell you, I like kind of the way I talk about this with people is like, people are like, how did you get to why did you write a book about burnout? I'm like, well, I got super burned out about 5 years ago, just, personal experience, unfortunately, bad personal experience. And I got to the point where there was an event in my office where I snapped my keyboard in half. And I got to the point where one day, kind of towards the end of the day, I was just like, you know what, maybe everybody would be better off if I wasn't around. And I was like, and I'm like, oh my God, did I just think about killing myself? And that was like an electric shock, like went through my whole body. I was like, holy cow. I'm like, I have to change. Some things have to change. And that was like those are kind of my two scary / aha moments. And then from then on, it was just became this like every day I'm like, I have to try something new. So one thing that was super important or was really driving my burnout was insomnia. I had horrible insomnia. I would sleep 2 or 3 hours a night and then get up and then my mind was just like, a squirrel cage running. And so I worked on like a lot of things for sleep. And then once I got better sleep, then I was like, wow, now I can make better decisions. And oh, hey, I feel like exercising. And now that I'm exercising and getting better sleep, maybe I should actually eat better. And then, wow, look at these books. These books are really good to help me think about how to, like how are my mental models, how do I think about things, what's my role as a physician, what's my role in my family, and then those things start to get better. I actually tried a few supplements which I think are very helpful. I never was big for prescription medicines or anything like that, or at least for where I was, and just every day it was kind of like this kind of this cumulative effect, kind of this upward spiral is kind of the way I think of it. And then finally to the point where I'm like, wow, I'm pretty good. I feel pretty good. I'm like, I feel peaceful. I'm like happy where I am, like something happens at work and I'm like, I didn't blow up. It's just kind of like all these like historical responses you had are now all different because I'm different, because I think you become, if you learn and grow and change, which I think is the essence of life, I think you become different. And hopefully that's a good, better, different, rather than a, kind of worse, more unhappy different. So that's kind of the path that I went down.
Do you think now it's just a matter of continuing those support structures and just like being consistent with reading the books and taking the supplements and doing the exercise? And does it still require any real willpower, or now that you've been into the routine and you've seen the benefits, it's like, why on earth would I stop?
I think it's, I like to think of burnout, and I talk a lot about this on our website and in the book. I think of it like recovery, like almost like recovery from addiction. Not that anyone's ever addicted to burnout, but it is a daily struggle. It's a daily battle. Things will test you and kind of test your resolve. And the way I kind of think of it now is like, well, if I was a bucket of water and someone was going to take a cup out of my bucket of water, I'm like, I'm okay. If I was a bucket of water and my bucket was mostly empty and they take a cup out, now I'm completely empty. And then that's when, things happened and there was yelling and frustration and all sorts of bad behavior. So I think you learn things and your reserve is better. Your response is better. I don't know. I feel like I'm a guy, and guys in general are really dumb about their feelings and about thinking and thinking about themselves. And so for me, it was a very slow process because I'm a guy. But I think I'm trying to like snatch the pebble from the master's hands, so to speak. If you get the kung fu reference from the 1970s, but yeah. So I feel like you're never complete, so to speak. But I think it's a process, and I think, and a lot of these things now are for me are habits. I get up in the morning and I know exactly what's going to happen the first 2 hours that I'm up. So
you're so great. Okay, speed round.
I'm
right?
ready.
You ready?
I have my headphones on.
You mentioned supplements that you think are really helpful. Where do we go to learn about that? Can you just tell us,
Okay. Real quickly, there's a guy named Mark Moyad, Moyad. He is a professor at Michigan, great guy, a friend of mine. He wrote a book called The Supplement Handbook, What Works and What's Worthless. I highly recommend that. That's a great book. I basically also use stuff that works for me. There's a compound called Resveratrol, 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 which has lots of health benefits. I think that's been very useful to me. There's a compound called Niagen, or True Niagen, which is like something that helps with cellular energy. Those are two things that I take. But to me, that's 1% of what's happening. And I don't want people to get the idea that, hey, I'm super burned out, I'm going to take these 2 pills and things are going to be perfect. No.
Well, right.
It's important. It's a piece of the puzzle for me. But it was one of those things where I feel better and perform better and do better when I use those things. And so that's why I do.
Awesome. And last question is books. Okay. So you mentioned in your process of recovery, and even now, the books were a piece of that puzzle. Are there 1 or 2 books that you think were just standouts or just in general? Because people always love buying a good book. Number one book that I recommend, I know, is this bad boy right here. What else?
That is important. I think any one of the Eckhart Tolle books.
Yeah.
It's more about mindset. I like a lot of books about creativity and perception. There are, I'm blanking on the name of this book, but there's a book where it's all about basically your perception kind of becomes your reality. And I will have to get you the name of it. But I just feel like to me, it's almost more important the process of actually getting out there and looking at different things and reading things and listening to things, that then you're training your mind to be more ready for change and to be able to think about things in a different way. And instead of the historical way that I always responded, or the historical way we've always done things, I'm like, let's learn, let's think about ways to learn and try something different. If it works, great. You incorporate that into your life. If it doesn't, then you move on.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give last piece of wisdom here. We all set and have some. You guys hear that echo? So what I was going to say, though, is that one piece of advice that I want to leave with everybody today is be mindful of who you surround yourself with. Be mindful of who you surround yourself with. So if you find that you hang out with people who are often quite negative, or you start to observe the feeling in your body, right? There are some people like, Jeff, every freaking time I'm around you, my whole heart just feels like this. Like it's just like this, it's this happy, it's elation, it's just like energy. And there are other people that I could talk to where it's like, maybe I don't really feel as much. Maybe I'm neutral. And then other people where I notice I get a little bit more tense or just tight or heavy, right? Be mindful of those things, because in the process of recovery and ongoing, whomever you choose to surround yourself with has a deep impact and an influence on how you show up in the world.
Yep.
And that can absolutely contribute to some of these feelings as well. Right. I wish everybody would tag a couple of people in the comments below to alert them to watch this episode, because there's nobody on the planet right now that couldn't get value from what we talked about today. Jeff, I just want to thank you so much for Having the courage to put those words on paper couldn't have been easy, and most people wouldn't have done that. So thank you for your courage. Thank you for showing up and being a leader. Thank you for writing the book, for choosing me and my team to help launch it. Our entire company just has nothing but the best things to say about you. We are celebrating you big time today. Really appreciate your family's support as well. And I just want everybody to go buy a copy of the book right now and tell all their friends. Is there any last things that you want to say before we end?
It's interesting when people are telling me they're buying the book, probably a third of the people are telling me they're buying the book and they're buying one for a friend who's a doctor. I'm like, so my thing is like, get one for yourself and for the doctor you love.
I love that. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you everybody for watching, and we will catch you on the next episode. We'll see you later.